Este episodio de More Than Mamis es presentado por los nuevos McCrispy Strips de McDonald's.
Y no estamos hablando de cualquier pollo. Estos strips son crujientes, jugosos y tienen ese toquecito de pimienta que los hace irresistibles.
Y lo mejor es que viene con su propia salsa, la nueva Creamy Chili McCrispy Strip Dip.
Una cremita sazonada con ese balance justo entre dulce y picante. Literal, está hecha para el dipping.
Pero bueno, aquí viene la gran pregunta. ¿Hasta cuántas veces se puede hacer dipping antes de que te juzguen? ¿Una vez, doble, triple?
Cuádruple, depende si estás en confianza. Yo digo que no hay límite, especialmente si tienes a la mano salsas como la barbecue, honey mustard, la sweet and sour de McDonald's o incluso la mezcla que no falla, la mayo ketchup.
Bueno, en mi casa la llamamos salsa rosada, pero es una de mis favoritas. Yo soy team de mezclar cualquier salsa, la que más nos guste, pero sí quiero probar esta, la nueva Creamy Chili.
Así es, pruébelo y después nos cuentan los nuevos McCrispy Strips más la Creamy Chili McCrispy Strip Dip, pollo hecho para el dipping, solo en McDonald's.
Para pa pa pa.
After the water came the upper part of a head from about the nose upward. But it had something strange. A kind of soaked cloth cap that surrounded it. When my brother paid attention and swam a couple of meters toward that thing, the creature simply went down very slowly, until it disappeared in the water. Very good evening, community. It's a pleasure to welcome you to my account here in this space that will always accompany you whenever you need it, whenever you want to feel that you're not alone. Here we will be for you. So today we invite you to leave all your worries out there. We all have pending matters at school, at work, with our partner. But for a moment we're going to forget them and dive fully into the following stories. It's the only way to immerse yourself completely, to live them as if you were there. And speaking of diving, today we will discover what inhabits a solitary dam in Mexico, where there are more accidents than normal. We will encounter an entity that appears in broad daylight on the metrobus. And we're going to understand why we must let the dead rest. If you dare, it's time to enter. If you don't want to, you're still in time. But in 10 seconds, we will begin with Tales of the Night. Hello? I want to share my experience that occurred while listening to Tales of the Night. Precisely. I know I'm not the first to experience something like this, since stories from listeners who have gone through the same thing have been mentioned on the program. Honestly, I never imagined being one of them, and if I'm honest with you, it seemed very unreal to me. My name is Mel. If I have the honor of being read, you can say my name without problem. I work near the Iztacalco delegation in the Mexican capital, so I take the metrobus daily. I always listen to horror podcasts, even to relax before sleeping. That morning I was listening to the chapter, Don't Go to the Zócalo at Night. I took line 2 and got a seat in front, next to the window. I was so focused on the story that I barely noticed when a boy of about 6 years old sat in the seat next to me. It was strange because there were many pairs of empty seats, but he sat next to me. It caught my attention immediately. He was dressed completely in black sweater, dress pants, black canvas shoes too. But the strangest thing was that he was alone. I didn't see his mother or companion anywhere, and besides, he was too quiet, with his head down. His hair was curly and slicked back. His skin was dark, his eyes dark brown, I think. I couldn't see them well. I have nephews, so I know that children that age are restless. Normally they would be moving around looking at the metrobus screen, the window, I don't know. But not him. He remained completely still. The only thing he moved was his head to turn and look at me. Every time I opened my backpack to take something out, he would tilt his face, observe the interior, analyzing the object in question. That's when I started to notice how strange the situation was. By that moment, I thought, it wouldn't surprise me if this wasn't happening, if he wasn't a person. This is too weird. And the thing is, community, it wasn't the first time I had seen strange things. When I reached my station, I asked him for permission to get off. He, without looking at me, simply pulled his legs to the side. "Thank you," I said to him, passing carefully so as not to trip. And that's when my suspicions started to be confirmed. The lady in the seat behind looked at me with a strange expression, almost confused, as if she were thinking, "And this crazy woman? Who's she talking to?" Another lady who was sitting in the seats next to us also stared at me. She leaned forward a little as if she wanted to ask me something, but she didn't. She just stared at my face. Both had seen how I asked for permission and thanked him, how I bent down so as not to hit the child, but their looks made me feel that something wasn't right. When I reached the exit door, I looked back at the seat. The child was still there. That was also strange. Normally, I think children move to the window when the seat becomes vacant or call their companion to sit next to them. But he didn't. He stayed there, alone, motionless. When I got off the metrobus, something inside me made me turn around once more, and that's when I realized. The seat was empty. There was no one there. The child couldn't be seen anywhere, despite the fact that there were very few people in the unit. While he was next to me, I didn't feel fear, but I did feel a deep sadness, and all that day I felt melancholic. I arrived at work with a feeling of emptiness and truly uncontrollable urges to cry. Thank you for reading, community. Here I will continue to be aware of the stories, even though I might experience another as eerie as the one I just told. I was visiting my uncles in Mexico when they took us on a Monday to the dam to swim. My uncle asked for the day off from work and told my cousins they had permission to skip school. It was the first time they were meeting the family they had on the other side in the United States. My parents don't have papers, so they can't return to Mexico. And they sent my brother and me to visit, like as representatives, because they would love to be able to do it. So they took us to that dam not very far from their house. About half an hour away, a dam surrounded by low, almost dry trees and bushes. A desert dam that looked good for swimming, and that obviously fascinated my brother and me. We didn't have those back home. Upon arriving, my uncle, as soon as he got out of his truck, started running toward the water, and somehow kept taking off his pants, shirt, and shoes without stopping to end up only in shorts and dive in. My brother and I tried to do the same, following his pace, sure that my cousins were coming behind, but after jumping into the freezing water by the way, we looked back and saw my cousins very calmly, helping their mother set up a small table to prepare something to eat. We were surprised because we hadn't helped, but after half an hour, they were still there, with the table already set up and everything ready, but without daring to approach the water. We thought then that it was because of how cold it was. Eventually we got tired of swimming and got out of the water for a while. My aunt warned us that that dam was extremely dangerous, full of weeds at the bottom that seemed to pull you down. We told her not to worry, that we swam well, but my cousin Felipe, 7 years old, said that didn't matter, that they had tried to pull his brother down, that he felt with his hands how they pulled him to the bottom and he barely saved himself, even though he was the one who swam best in the family. My aunt remained silent, but didn't correct him. She didn't tell him it wasn't true or that it was his imagination. She simply emphasized to us that we should be very careful and not open our eyes under the water for any reason. And there we were, swimming until sunset. My cousins never touched the water. My aunt only at some point put her feet in, and my uncle did spend time swimming, and us with him. Until my brother suddenly got out. He looked tired, even pale from having swum so much. Then I got out for something else, because my imagination was already playing strange tricks on me. But that night, already in the room I shared with my cousin Alvaro, the oldest, he confessed to us that they didn't like the dam because many people drowned there, including 2 boys from his school recently who went in to swim. They went down and simply never came back up. He said that in that sense, a couple of weeks later, a hand squeezed his ankle, that it pulled him down and he still didn't understand how the hell he had been able to get out. There in the night, in that room, my brother and I confessed 2 things. At some point, when only my uncle and I were in the water at sunset, while he was moving away to take one last lap, I tried to submerge myself a little in there. Disobeying my aunt, out of curiosity, I opened my eyes. I managed to see those weeds that covered the bottom. But I also saw something else. Underneath them, I was sure I saw a very small figure, swimming as if it were a child, but with completely white skin. It wasn't a fish, because that strange stroke like children who are just learning to swim do. It was impossible for someone who swims like that to be able to do it at that depth and with that speed. But that's how it was. That's what I saw. That's what made me get out of the water. What at that moment I thought I had believed I saw. But my brother saw something worse. A few meters away, as if coming out of the deepest part of the dam, he saw something that came out of the water, as if peeking out to see him. From the water came the upper part of a head from about the nose upward, but it had something strange. A kind of soaked cloth cap that surrounded it. When my brother paid attention and swam a couple of meters toward that thing, the creature simply went down very slowly until it disappeared in the water. My cousin believed us. He smiled and nodded as if he had been waiting for us to reach that conclusion, for us to believe him. He started checking something on his phone and eventually came to a post from months ago that he wanted to show us. It showed a group of friends next to the dam. They looked like students because they were wearing uniforms. "The rabbit," said my cousin. "These 2 said they saw someone with rabbit ears." He pointed to 2 boys in the photograph, and a while later they stayed there. And they still haven't found them. Many people drown, but they find them. But these 2, no one knows what happened to them. Then I understood their fear, their reserve about going in. But for my uncle, those are stories from ignorant people. Nothing more. That's why he doesn't mind going in. That's why he makes fun of his children for being afraid. Although I resist believing it, the next time I visit my family in Mexico, I'm sure I won't swim there again. Hello, community of Tales of the Night. I share with you a story that has been in my family for years, and that to this day continues to generate chills among us. Although it's not as terrifying as other stories that have been told on the channel, I hope you enjoy it. My name is Andrea. I don't usually believe in paranormal things. I love listening to scary stories, but I've always been skeptical, maybe because nothing strange has ever happened to me. However, there's a story in my family that has made me doubt. It's something my cousin experienced since we were children, and that many years later repeated itself in a terrifying way. We grew up together at my uncle's house, almost like sisters. Since she was very small, my cousin talked about a boy she saw every night at the foot of her bed. She said he was very strange, different from any person she had ever seen. Besides, he had one blue eye and one black eye. We never knew where she got that idea from, but the most unsettling thing was what she told us. That boy asked her to go with him. Terrified, she started avoiding her room. In fact, for a long time she preferred to sleep in the living room. My uncles tried to calm her down. They even took her to a psychologist, thinking it was just her childhood imagination. Over time, she stopped talking about the boy. We all assumed she had forgotten him, or that he simply never existed. Years passed and a new little cousin was born in the family, daughter of another of our uncles. When she was around 5 years old, we all went to a house that my uncles have in a small town near the city. It's an old place with old furniture and very curious objects. Among them, an old camera that no longer worked. My little cousin, curious as always, took it to play at taking pictures of flowers at some point in the afternoon. She was alone in a room on the upper part of the house, a little away from the others. We were all in the garden when suddenly we saw her come down running, completely terrified. You could see on her face that something had really scared her. Through tears, she told us that she had been playing with the camera, pointing it thoughtlessly at everything, until suddenly she saw something through the lens. A boy. There was no one else with her. There was no boy in the house. But there, reflected in her camera, was a boy of about 5 years old. She said he had one blue eye and another black one. No one in the family knew what to say. My older cousin, the one who as a child talked about that same boy, went pale. She didn't say anything, but her expression said it all. That boy, that imaginary friend, was still there. Many thanks for continuing here, community. But now let's go with a story that, beyond being supernatural, is extremely sad. You'll judge it. We continue. I was listening to Tales of the Night, and a story caught my attention a lot. That motivated me to share mine. It's not a scary story, I think quite the opposite, but I hope you take it into account, since not all stories have to frighten. I believe, and this is my story. A bit long, but I hope you read it. 9 years ago, my father passed away. He died in a hospital due to an illness. I don't usually tell this story much because almost no one believed what I experienced after his death. I dreamed about him very frequently. He always looked happy. About 3 months after his death, I was in the living room with my mother, Antonia, and my siblings Itzel and Eric. Suddenly I heard in a whisper, "Doña Toña." It was my father's voice calling my mother as he always did. It seemed strange to me, since his death was recent. I got up and went to the patio that was next to the living room. I turned on the light, but I didn't see anything. So I turned it off and returned with my family. But seconds later I heard it again. "Doña." As soon as I heard it, I told my mother, "Mom, Dad is calling you." My family fell silent, looking at me strangely. My brother asked me, "What did you just say?" "That Dad is calling you," I repeated. "I heard him from the patio." I said this with such certainty that everyone stood up and went to check. They turned on the light, but there was nothing. "I heard him clearly," I insisted to my mother. "He was whispering your name like he always did." But they didn't believe me. They said I was crazy. How could I say such things? We returned to the living room, and I kept thinking about why only I had heard his voice, but I couldn't find any answer. A week later, I kept dreaming about him frequently. He was always happy. One night I dreamed that I accompanied him to buy clothes and some glasses. And then, in the dream, he told me that he needed them, that he could no longer see well. When I told my mother about this dream, she told me that he wanted his glasses, that I should take them to the cemetery because maybe he needed them. And that's what I did. I went to his grave, removed some dirt, and made a small hole, and left them there so he could see better. One day at my job at the bank, I was processing a card for a client when something strange happened. While I was talking to her, the printer turned on. Suddenly the lights flickered. I felt a cold air and my skin crawled, but I didn't want to give it importance. When I finished the procedure, the woman stared at me without saying anything, hugged me, and when saying goodbye asked me to take very good care of myself. It seemed strange to me, but I thanked her. Besides, I couldn't complain about someone hugging me, about someone having good wishes toward me. Weeks later, this client, Maria, would start working at the bank. Without knowing it, she was going to become a very important person in this story. Days passed and I felt extreme tiredness. As soon as I arrived from work, I went straight to bed. I was never hungry, only sleepy. My back hurt, as if I had carried something very heavy all day. On my days off, I barely got out of bed, and my mother noticed, although she thought it was simple exhaustion. I remember very well how a week later, Maria approached me at work and asked me if I was okay. I told her yes, that I simply felt very tired. Then she told me she had to tell me something, but not to get scared. When you helped me with my card procedure, I saw someone standing behind you. A tall man with brown hair. Since that day, I've seen him near you. So forgive me if I ask you this. Forgive the familiarity, but has someone in your family died recently? Yes, my father died a few months ago, I answered. She asked me to show her a photo. I took out my cell phone and showed her a photo of my father. Maria became very serious and after a few seconds told me, "It's him. He's the person I saw at your desk, and I've seen him at my house too." She told me that one night at her house, the dog started barking for no apparent reason. When she went out to the patio, she saw a man in the darkness. She asked him what he wanted, she told me, and he answered,
"Can you see me?"
She told him yes. And then the man confessed to her that he could no longer leave peacefully because he had left his family alone, that he only wanted them to be well. At that moment, Maria knew it wasn't a bad person, a bad apparition. She told me that my father had spoken to her to transmit that message to me. She also explained that he was absorbing my energy. That's why I was so sleepy and felt exhausted. "He needs your energy to stay here," she told me. "But that's affecting you. You can't continue like this. He has to leave in peace. You have to let him go." She recommended that I talk to my family, that we do a small ritual to say goodbye to him. Each one should light a candle with his name, place a glass of water, and tell him from the bottom of the heart that he could leave in peace, that we were going to be okay. When she mentioned my family, she described each one with their attitude. Without knowing them, she told me that my mother wasn't going to believe me, and she was right. When I gathered the courage, I told everything to my mother and my sisters. At first they listened to me in silence. Then my mother said not to believe those things. My sister Itzel commented that each person believes what they want. And my brother Eric asked what we should do. When I explained the ritual, there was a small discussion. My sister said she wouldn't do it. My brother wouldn't either. My mother only promised to pray. At that moment, faced with their refusal, I felt a heavy hand on my shoulder. It was like someone giving me a pat, almost like a hug. I felt something cold run down my back, and when I turned around, I didn't see anyone. That night I slept deeply, like I hadn't in a long time, and I dreamed about my father once more. We were like in a plaza, buying things, and he told me with a smile, "I love you very much, but it's time to go." Today I woke up with tears in my eyes. That same day I bought a candle, wrote his name on it, and put a glass of water next to his photo. I lit the candle and spoke to him from the deepest part of my heart. "Dad, are you okay? You can leave in peace. You didn't leave us alone. We are never alone. Continue your path, go to the light, greet those who have gone. I'm going to miss you, but you will always be in my heart. I love you and I will always love you. Goodbye, Dad." After that, everything changed. My energy returned. I felt happy and light. I no longer had that exhausting sleepiness or the feeling of tiredness. During the first months after his death, I used to smell his perfume in the house. Then the smell changed. Now it smelled like red roses, his favorite flowers. Even though 9 years have passed, I still feel his presence. When I'm sad or scared, the rose scent appears. I know he's still here, passing by, visiting us. And that's my story. It's not terrifying, as you can see, but it's the most beautiful I've lived. I feel fortunate to have felt my father, to have dreamed about him, to have heard him. Maybe many won't believe me, but some will. Each person believes what they want to believe. Thank you for your attention to my story. What did you think of this story, community? I think it leaves us a lesson. Do you believe in the paranormal or not? It's always important to let our dead go. Let them rest while we learn to live with that absence, with that grief, with that learning that will stay with us forever. But that shouldn't prevent us from continuing with our lives and trying to be happy. Imagine for a moment that you die, and that you can see, that you can witness the suffering of your family, of those you love most in life, and that you can't tell them you're okay, that you can't tell them not to worry, that you are going to rest. No. The only thing you can do is silently observe the people you love most, being very sad, being infinitely sad because of your absence. It's a destiny that I truly don't wish on anyone, a destiny of eternal sadness that no one should experience. So why cause that to our dead? We have to let them go. We have to live the life that corresponds to us, if you want, as a tribute to all those we love who are no longer here, to all those who have taught us so many things. Be the people your dead would be proud of. Shall we continue? Hello, community. After years of being a listener to the stories that this beautiful community has told, I've decided to share mine. Well, more than mine, it's my family's. For this, I asked permission from my parents and obviously my siblings to be able to tell it, since it involves all of us. Unlike many family stories that have been told on your channel, this is not a terror story of haunted houses or curses. I'll leave those for another occasion, since certain events have also happened to my family that, while they may seem isolated, are worthy of being told. But the story I want to share is more of a family story. It deals more with love and promises that we don't manage to fulfill, but that remain as pending matters that bind us in a certain way to this world. I was around 7 or 8 years old. I am the 5th daughter of 6 siblings. At that time, we lived in a very small house with barely 2 rooms. In the first room, the largest, there were 2 beds. In one slept my parents and my younger brother, and my sisters and I shared the other bed. In the other room, we had a dining room, the stove, and at the back a bed that my 2 older sisters shared. As you can see, we all lived and slept crowded together. We also had a huge terrace where my mother had a brazier, and there she sat every morning to make tortillas and my father's provisions. If that small house could talk, we would have hundreds of stories to tell. Quite worthy events happened to us, but this particular one we all lived through. At that time, we were visited a lot by an aunt who I look very much like. My mother said that seeing her was like seeing me as an adult, and she wasn't wrong, since at my 35 years, we are indeed identical. She was a very cheerful small-town lady. She always had stories to tell us, and gave off a sensation that made it so you couldn't stop listening to her or being next to her. Aunt Hilaria always infected us with her warm joy. We loved her very much from her first visit. We all became very fond of her. And from then on, whenever she arrived at the house, there were hours of talks and laughter. She told us about her children. They traveled a lot, and she was alone most of the time. So that's why she decided to go out and visit family while she still could. She also talked to us about some arrangements she was making on a small piece of land she had. There were problems with the papers, and at that time she had to do all the procedures personally. Whenever she left, my mother and my sisters and I would go to see her off at the bus stop. On one of those visits, rather, the last one we received, she arrived at the house as she always had. But on that occasion, something had changed. She looked different. She felt different. When she arrived, I was at school. My mother was with my older sister. When she saw her, my mother immediately noticed that she had some bruises on her face, thinking that someone had hit her. "What happened to you?" my mother asked her. "Nothing. An accident I had, but it's nothing. I'm much better. That's why I didn't have my sister come. She went for my brother and me to school. My mother stayed with my aunt. We don't know exactly what happened in that time while my sister went for us. But when we arrived, she was there sitting talking with my mother. I immediately realized that I didn't have the same sensation of going to hug her as on other occasions. It gave me fear. We greeted her politely and went into the house, and they continued there talking about adult things that my brother and I really didn't understand, and the truth is, I don't even remember. My mother was finishing making her tortillas and called us to go eat. We went out, and they were in silence. I stood behind her and sat on the washstand so my mother could pass me my plate. And suddenly my aunt said, "Peña." She was addressing my mother. "Braid her hair." My mother told her yes. She asked me to pass her the comb, which was attached to a pillar where we hung a rabbit-shaped mirror. I stretched and gave it to her, and she started combing my hair. That's when she noticed that the bruises weren't only on her face, but also all over the back of her head. "Hey, but what happened to you? Look how you come. What did they do to you?" my mother asked her again. "Nothing. What happens is that the other day a car hit me and knocked me down. It pushed me to the sidewalk and I hit myself. But I'm fine now. Don't worry." "But did you go to the doctor? Did they check you?" she asked. "Well, they took me to the hospital. They told me to go, that they had to attend to me. And yes, I went, but they didn't pay attention to me, and I had to go see about the land. I got tired of waiting for them. The doctors didn't pay attention to me, and I better went to my house." "You should have stayed there," my mother told her. We couldn't hide the discomfort of seeing her bruises. My brother and I finished eating and better went into the house. Anyway, there wasn't anything being said that caught our attention. My sister stayed with my mother and the aunt. I don't know why, but she didn't want to leave them alone. Even on the way from school to the house, she kept hurrying us. "Run quickly. Mom stayed alone," she told us. But she wasn't alone. She was with the aunt. What I'm going to tell you was what my mother said she talked about with her, and my sister corroborated it. Since she was there sitting on a plastic bucket, just listening and, according to her, taking care of my mother. Believe me, many things have happened since the last time I came. My daughter went to Mexico. I went to see her off. It was the day the car hit me. Can you believe it? And I've had very ugly nightmares. The other day I dreamed I was in my house surrounded by people and they all slipped. The truth is, it did scare me. I chased them away, but they wouldn't leave. What do you think that dream means? My mother, who felt her skin crawling, dedicated herself to telling her. I don't know, maybe it's because you feel alone. You know, children grow up and leave and then they don't remember their parents. Why don't you go with your family for a while, and you'll feel more accompanied, helping your grandmother? No, I don't feel comfortable anymore today. I better go back to see about my land. It's almost finished. The lawyer told me only a few signatures are missing. I want that to be over so I can rest from that pending matter. They just have me going back and forth. While my mother continued combing her hair, the conversation about her accident continued. She told my mother that morning, she had gone to the bus terminal, that she was already feeling bad and had vomited in the street. After a while, my father arrived with my brothers from work. They studied in open school. That's why they had the week free to go help my father in the field. He was surprised to see her, and unlike other occasions, he only greeted her, almost ignoring her presence. My brothers, like us, greeted her without giving her more importance. No one said anything, but we all seemed to have a certain fear. It's getting dark, so my mother told her to stay. The buses took longer in the afternoons to pass. It was better for her to sleep, and the next day she could leave if she wanted. And she accepted to stay that night, since the next day she had to travel because she had the pending matter of her land papers. But of course, being such a small house and sharing beds, she had to share with someone. She had to sleep with us. We slept crosswise to fit all four of us. The aunt slept on one edge. My middle sister had to sleep near her and couldn't fall asleep. Although little by little fatigue overcame her and she finally fell asleep. That's what we all thought. The next day my mother had to go cut coffee and took my brothers. Only my older sister, my younger brother, and I stayed at home. As with each visit, we accompanied the aunt to the bus stop. We waited for the bus there with her. In the conversation we had, or rather what she told us, she promised to return for my sister's birthday, and for some reason was excited that I would turn 15. At that time I was only 8 years old, so there was too much time left. After a while, we saw the bus coming. My sister flagged it down. When the bus stopped, we started saying goodbye to her, and at that moment my brother noticed how the driver made gestures of annoyance, as if waiting anxiously, like when you're in a big hurry. After a brief moment, my aunt got on. The driver made us a gesture of anger and took off very hard and continued on his way. His gestures, while they seemed strange to us, we didn't pay that much attention to them at that moment. In the afternoon, when my mother arrived from the field, tired, she was washing her hands in the washstand and asked my sister, "Did your aunt leave already?" My sister answered yes, that at noon we saw her off, that she had told us she would come to the February 2nd fair. While we were commenting, my father asked the same thing anxiously, if the aunt had already left. We told him yes. "At noon," my sister repeated. I don't know how to explain it, but a serious atmosphere began to be noticed. We were all outside, quiet, thoughtful, and my mother made the first comment. "I felt your aunt very strange. May God forgive me, but I wanted her to leave. It was like she wasn't herself, right?" My older sister commented, "Well, who knows what she had, but it did feel very strange to see her." My father said, "It even scared me." My mother said that my mother agreed. She told him she felt very heavy, and it scared her, that the bruises she had really bothered her. "Well, I don't know, but last night my aunt didn't let me sleep," said my sister. "Every now and then she pinched my back and feet very hard." My mother asked her if she had heard correctly, if she pinched her. "Yes, it scared me because she would get up suddenly, look to the sides, lie back down, and then pinch me. I think I didn't sleep all night." That comment, community, shocked us all. My sister told about the strange behavior of the driver when we said goodbye to her, that he had even gotten angry, that he looked very ugly, that he said something we didn't understand and left. We all agreed that we had felt her different, somber, sad, no longer with her previous energy. In a certain way, we felt relieved that she had already left. The air changed. Everything felt calm, everything at peace. A couple of weeks later, my father, along with my older brother, traveled to visit my grandparents. My father used to go see them a lot and brought us bread, corn, and other things they grew in the town. When they returned, they had a different face, worried, thoughtful. He sat down and commented to my mother, "Hey, what do you think my mother told me?" What did she tell you? She answered that Hilaria died. What do you mean she died? Could it have been from the blows she had? No, my father answered. It wasn't that. Or well, I don't know. He began to tell us that upon arriving at the town, at his parents' house, in the conversation, my grandmother gave him the news. My father was very surprised because barely 2 weeks ago, she had been at the house. And at that moment, the grandmother told him, "How are you crazy? If it's already been more than a month since she died." When he told us that, I think we all shared the same chill. What do you mean a month? If she just came to the house recently? My mother answered, "Yes, that's what I told them. But they say it can't be. That it's already been a month that they buried her, that a bus ran her over. The day she went to see her daughter off, she didn't pay attention and the truck backed up and ran her over. They picked her up in an ambulance, but she was vomiting blood. She arrived dead at the hospital. They held her wake at her house and her daughter returned." We were all stunned, not understanding what had really happened. How is it that she went to the house? That she told us what happened to her? In a certain way, I can only say that it was her, that this is something we lived through, that I remember her clearly, that I touched her, that I felt her. Sometime later, the grandparents came to visit us and confirmed the conversation with my father. Once again, they told us the entire story, which coincided with what she had told us that day. She was a lovely person, and we are certain that she knew the love we felt for her and within us. We know that she came to say goodbye because she knew that she was not going to see us again. That visiting us was among her pending matters. When I turned 15 years old, my parents threw me a big party, which I did not want. But I want to think that part of that party was because one of her dreams was to be present that day. I want to think that my aunt was there. Honestly, I was not planning to tell this story. It is very personal for my family, but when I heard the episode of The Witch of Pedregal, the final part where it said that the dead pinched her really stood out to me. Have a very good night.